Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Jim Richey, President of Eastern Florida State College. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Simpkins Speaker Series featuring Harris Rosen. Mr. Rosen is an iconic hotelier and philanthropist in Central Florida. Some of our Eastern Florida graduates continue their studies at the UCF Rosen School of Hospitality in Orlando, which is recognized as among the very best in the nation. We hope Mr. Rosen inspires you to become an entrepreneur and find the same success that he has achieved. The Speaker Series is named after the late Bernard Simpkins, an entrepreneurial giant in his own right who called Brevard County home. His legacy lives on through student scholarships and by bringing speakers like Mr. Rosen to the college. Before we hear from Mr. Rosen, I'd like to introduce Jill Simpkins, the daughter of Bernard Simpkins, who will announce this year's Bernard Simpkins Entrepreneurial Scholarship recipients. Thank you and enjoy today's event.
Thank you, Dr. Richey and Cindy Kane, for your support of this project. Thanks also to Dr. Tom Labasso and Dr. Tim Norton at Daytona State College. I'm Jill, and it is my honor to carry on the legacy of my father, Bernie Simpkins. His mission was to share some business fundamentals and the success that's possible as entrepreneurs through this speaker series. This year in particular is very special, as we not only honor and remember my father, but we also celebrate 20 years presenting the Simpkins Speaker Series. Our very first speaker was the founder and CEO of Chick-fil-A, Truett Cathy. Over the years, we have had highly successful and talented speakers, all willing to share their adventures in business and offer all of us some great tips to help us be successful as well. We are honored and grateful today to add Mr. Harris Rosen to this impressive list, as both Mr. Rosen and Bernie Simpkins embody a philosophy of hard work and giving back to the community. My father once said, "Entrepreneurship is an open road to success for those who choose to invest their hard work and determination. Saving what you earn to establish a beginning is a key to success." Before we hear about Harris Rosen's road to success, I'd like to introduce and congratulate our two EFSC Bernie Simpkins Entrepreneurial Scholarship recipients, Daniel Stefano and Onaya Anjum. And as Bernie would say, well done.
Daniel Stefano is a Brevard County native working on a computer programming and analysis associate's and science degree. As a first-generation college student, Daniel chose Eastern Florida State College because it was the most affordable option and provided a degree to advance his career within the information technology industry. Daniel has been studying and applying concepts he learns in the classroom to one day launch his own business. Daniel is working on a web application called the Hangry Meter. It is a software that provides users a way to find food options in a fun way. Daniel came up with this idea because his wife, Mary Beth, gets angry when she is hungry, hence the name for the software, Hangry. Whenever Daniel would ask Mary Beth what she wants to eat, she usually wants something quick. The application has a slider on the page, and the user can slide it from low to high to indicate their hunger. The application would recommend food options based on how hungry the user is. The other business idea Daniel is working on is Co-Shopper. This application would allow users to track all purchases in an automated fashion. When you purchase a product, you would have the option to automatically import purchases via email or linking an account to a store like Best Buy member account. It would log what you purchase and when. It tracks the return policies and generates a return by date. It will alert you whenever a price drops below your purchase price for as long as the return or price match policy is in place. It can also notify you when the final return date is approaching. It will store your receipts for easy returns. Daniel expresses his gratitude for this scholarship to not only help ease the cost of college, but to allow him to continue to pursue his business endeavors. He was very saddened to learn about the passing of Mr. Bernie W. Simpkins, as he would have loved an opportunity to thank him personally for this opportunity. Oneza Anham is very happy and honored to be a recipient of the Bernie W. Simpkins Entrepreneur Scholarship. She is thankful for the generous financial support towards her higher education. Being awarded this scholarship has allowed Oneza to be one step closer to achieving her goal of having a part-time art business while continuing her education. One of her biggest dreams is to own a successful business selling her artwork. The scholarship will help Oneza display her art online on different platforms. Oneza is a junior majoring in biomedical science. When it was time for her to decide where she would complete her major, she knew Eastern Florida State College was the perfect fit for her. Aside from scholarships like the one she received, Oneza said EFSC has wonderful faculty and staff who are passionate about teaching and providing the best quality of education. EFSC provides easy access to tutors who help students excel in tough courses. Oneza has enjoyed her time as a student and looks forward to graduation day so she can pursue her professional career and focus more on her business endeavors. Oneza said the Bernie W. Simpkins Entrepreneur Scholarship has opened a door of opportunities for her and plays a key role in shaping her into a successful person in the future. She also expresses that donors like Mr. Simpkins makes life brighter for everyone, and she hopes that one day she can do the same.
Hello, I'm Eric Wright. As a writer and as the publisher of I4 Business Magazine, Space Coast Business Magazine, and Space Coast Living Magazine, I had the opportunity to interview hundreds of CEOs, from small technology startups to multinational, multi-billion-dollar high-tech aerospace and defense companies. But without question, the most fascinating and the most inspiring person I ever interviewed was Mr. Harris Rosen. You know, if I was to define ethical capitalism, I wouldn't use words. Instead, I would use a portrait of an individual, which is Mr. Harris Rosen, because he embodies not only what can be done in the free market system, the creativity, the risk, the reward, but also what should be done with that kind of success. From risking everything on a small motor court hotel after he had been fired from a large, very successful corporate hospitality position, to building a family of hotels that is really the gold standard in one of the largest hospitality destinations in the world. I hope you all are prepared to be, as I was, inspired and fascinated by this incredible individual and what he has done. Mr. Rosen, I know you have shared it many times, but if you would be willing to share your journey from, beginning in the corporate world to starting your own hotel, and what that was like for you, that jump into the entrepreneurial experience, I know would be inspiring to these students and all who are watching.
Well, I appreciate your kind words. It's a long story. It started when I was born and raised in New York City's Lower East Side. My dad's family came from Belarus. My mom's family came from Austria, Hungary. And as so many hundreds of thousands of immigrants from Eastern Europe, from Ireland, from Italy, they settled in New York City's Lower East Side. Not exactly an affluent community. But that's where I was born, along with my brother. And that's where I grew up. And I think there were many benefits to growing up in a neighborhood like that. We always appreciated whatever good things would happen. My brother and I went to school in New York City, and somehow, to this day, I still don't understand why, but Cornell University accepted me in their School of Hotel Management. It's an interesting story because My dad worked at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel as a sign painter and a safety person. And on occasion, he would ask me to help him on weekends with little place cards that he would do for large banquets. My job was to erase the pencil he used to write the name on the place card. He would then go over it with India ink. My job was to erase the pencil, fold the card, and put it in a shoebox in alphabetical sequence. I mention this only because I worked for Dad on weekends doing this. He paid me a penny a card. Sometimes there were several hundred cards, and so I would earn several dollars, which meant so much to me in terms of what I could purchase at the corner drugstore. So anyway, one day we were taking the shoebox to the appropriate banquet room where the event was going to be scheduled. And we walked into the elevator, and a very tall, distinguished gentleman was there with the most beautiful blonde lady I'd ever seen in my life. I was about 10 years old. And I asked Dad if he would introduce me to the young lady, and he said, sure, but he introduced me first to the gentleman. And the gentleman was Mr. Joseph Kennedy, the dad to President Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, who was the ambassador to, I guess, Great Britain at that time. And then he introduced me to the young lady. He said, Harris, I'd like you to meet Marilyn Monroe. And she gave me a hug that I can still feel today. So when Dad and I were talking after high school about what college I might want to apply to, of course, my dad was an artist, and I had his artistic abilities as well. I went to Music and Art High School in New York, and we were applying to fine arts colleges, but I remembered Maryland, and I thought, boy, it would be fun to study hotel management. And I asked Dad if he would mind if I applied to a hospitality college, and he said, of course not. So I applied to Cornell and was shocked when I was accepted. So I spent 4 years at Cornell. Vietnam was heating up a bit, and so I thought if I'm going to serve, I might as well serve as an officer. So I went through 4 years of ROTC training. When I graduated and earned my second lieutenant bars. And I immediately went into the Army and was shipped overseas, not to Vietnam, where I thought I was, and then ultimately to Germany. I left the Army after 3.5 years of service as a first lieutenant. I did my basic training at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I still enjoy jumping out of airplanes. And so I started my career in hospitality, where my dad had worked for about 30 years at the Waldorf Astoria. And the only jobs they had available were jobs that were probably not what I was hoping for, but I didn't care. I said, I'll start anywhere. And so I started on the 4th floor, which was where all of the small meetings occurred, and my job was to help set up meetings, which I did. One day, a gentleman walked by one of the rooms I was working in, and he said, hi, my name is Sal Lavedini. I'm the director of sales what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm part of the setup team. He said, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I told him that I just came out of the Army as an officer. I told him that I went to Cornell for 4 years and had a degree in hospitality management. And he said, you shouldn't be doing this. He said, tell you what, the next opening I have in sales, I will make sure that you receive that job. It wasn't very long before Mr. Leviniti came to me and said, one of my guys just left. I'd like you to join the sales team. And that was really the beginning of my career. I stayed at the Waldorf for a couple of years, and then they assigned me to the management training team, where I would have an opportunity to work for about 4 or 5 or 6 months in various hotels. And I did. I wound up in Texas, in Dallas, as the assistant general manager of the Dallas Statler Hotel. A gentleman who I worked with, a very successful insurance executive, he owned his own insurance company, came to me one day and he said, Harris, I've been given an opportunity to purchase a little hotel in Acapulco. He said, I'd like you to take a look at it and become my general manager. I did take a look at it. I fell in love with it, and I became the general manager. Sadly, about a year after I accepted the position, it was really loving living in Mexico. A new president was elected, President H.A. Faria, and he made a change that affected my life. The change was that no non-Mexican national could own more than 49% of real property. Mr. Post, my boss, had to sell 51% to a Mexican group. As soon as they took over ownership, I was fired. I drove to California and picked up the paper the next morning, and it mentioned that Disney, located in Burbank, would be building a huge Disneyland in Orlando. I drove to Burbank, interviewed for the job. They said that they would interview me in New York City, where they were doing all the final interviews. I drove from California to New York, spent some time with mom and dad, and then I interviewed again. I was told after the interview that I would be accepted as part of the hotel planning team for the hotels they would be building in Orlando. They asked me to come to California again and spend time with the architects. On my drive to California from New York, I had an accident in New Mexico and totaled my car, which was a little Volkswagen, which I purchased when I was in Germany. But put some stitches in my forehead and I flew to California, purchased a little car there, so I had transportation, and began working for Disney. In the late 70s, I was flown to Orlando to prepare for the final construction of the Disney properties and to help put a team together to operate the properties. We opened in 1971, and the first year was a very, very successful year for the hotels. They were running virtually full every single day. After I'd been there for a couple of years, I expected that maybe I would receive a nice pay increase at some point in time, but it didn't happen. And so I was very, very happy when I was asked to come in and talk to my boss's boss, which I did. He sat me down in his office and said, you've done a good job for us, but we don't really think that you'll become a successful executive here. And so I was fired. I didn't know what to do, but I thought that maybe I could find something for myself. And so some of you may remember there was an oil embargo in the early to mid 70s, 1974. And so I walked around and drove around and looked for a little motel. Most of the properties were in serious financial condition because with an oil embargo, people couldn't buy gas. So I found a little motel in a very, very wonderful location. And I went to visit and see if I might speak with the general manager or the owner. When I went to the front desk and I asked if the general manager or the owner was there, I was told that Mr. Morgan, the owner, was there. And he came out to the lobby to greet me. I walked with him to his office. He asked me how he could help me. I told him I was looking to buy a motel. He became very emotional, said that he was not an expert in hotel management, that he was there now because he had to terminate all of his management staff because occupancies were in the 15 to 20% range. He said he didn't know anything about managing hotels and would hope and pray that I would be able to purchase the property. He arranged for a meeting with the lender, and I spent time with the lender, and he was impressed with my credentials. He liked the fact that I went to Cornell when I was an officer in the Army, that I had a good career with Hilton, and that I did spend time with Disney also. And he said, Harris, we would love you to purchase this property. How much money do you have in the bank? And I said, I've got about $20,000 that I saved over the years. He said, fine. $20,000 will buy you the hotel, and you assume the mortgage. I didn't really understand what assuming a mortgage was. I essentially thought I was buying the hotel for $20,000. When I went to my attorney to indicate that I had signed the agreement, he said, you know what you signed? And I said, yes. I bought the hotel for $20,000. He said, no, you bought it for $2,020,000. And he explained to me what the mortgage was all about. Oh boy, I was in a panic mode. I didn't know what to do, but I did have an idea. Hotels were doing very badly because people couldn't buy gasoline. But I knew that the motor coach industry was still thriving because gas stations would sell to their favorite customer, the motor coach companies. And so I planned a trip to New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts to talk to the top motor coach companies in each of those areas. When I arrived, I met with the folks first in New York City.
Mr. Rosen, can I interrupt you just for a second? How did you get to New York? Share with how you actually got to New York and got to these different locations.
I did, and I apologize for
not
discussing that. But I couldn't afford to buy a plane ticket, so I thought I would hitchhike, and I went out on Interstate 4 and had a sign that said, heading to New York City, please help. And it wasn't very long before someone said, I'll take you to Jacksonville. And I said, that's wonderful. Got to Jacksonville, went out on the highway, and somebody else came by, and he said, if you share the driving with me, I'll drive you to the city where I'm headed. And that's how I got to New York City. And I met with the top motor coach folks there, and I had a little card that I gave the owners, and the card was blank except it had my name on it. It was like a business card. And Mr. Kasser was the first one I met with, and he said, "What do I do with the card?" I said, "Sir, you write the room rate that you want to pay for 2 years. I will honor it for 2 years." He said, "What rate?" I said, "Whatever room rate you want." He wrote down $7.50 a night. I shook his hand and I said, "I will send you a contract when I get back to Central Florida." He said, "Great." I then visited Liberty Go-Go and Joe Kastner, and he did the same thing, $7.50. I then asked if they knew the best way to get to New Jersey, and said, "Sure, we have buses that are headed there and we'll take you." They said, "Where are you going?" I said, "To Domenico Tours in New Jersey." I met with Vince Domenico, gave him a card, and he wrote a rate down. I think it was about $7.75. He then said, "Harris, where are you going now?" And I said, "I'm headed to Massachusetts." He said, "I've got buses going there. We'll take you there." I went to Paragon Tours and Crimson Tours, met with the ownership, and gave them cards, and they also signed the cards. Paragon Tours and the Pendler family asked how I was going to get back to Orlando, and I said, "My thumb." They said, "No, we'll find someone who's headed to Florida and they'll drop you off." And they did. A couple that drove on their way to Miami, they dropped me off at Orlando. They were my guest until they both passed every year for 2 weeks at my little Quality Inn property. I got back to Orlando and immediately sent a contract to the 5 motor coach companies that I spent time with. They signed them, and within a very short period of time, the buses started to come. In order to save money, I did a lot of different jobs. I lived in the hotel. I lived in the hotel for about 16 years. I was the breakfast server. I was the carver at night. I did all of the landscaping. I was head of security. I didn't feel that I was capable of doing the job myself, so I thought I would buy a German Shepherd who might become my chief of security. In the paper, there was an ad about a German Shepherd for sale, a family leaving Orlando. I visited them. They introduced me to Rin Tin Tin, their German Shepherd. I immediately fell in love with him, and I asked, "Can I purchase him?" They said, "Of course. We can't take a dog along with us. We're looking for a new job out of state." And I said, "Well, how much do you want for renting?" They said, "Can you give us $100? And I said, "No, I'll give you $300. And they both started to cry. And so now I had my chief of security. Rennie and I went back to the hotel. He lived with me in my little room at the property, and he stayed with me until he turned 14 and passed. And so that was the first property I purchased. The buses started storming in. It was interesting because other lenders would see how busy we were, and they would come over and ask me if I wanted to buy any more hotels. I said no. But after about 6 months, 7 months, things were going really well. I thought I could replicate what I had done at another property. The 2 gentlemen from Boston came by. They met with me. They were lenders. They said, "Come, we want to show you a little hotel." They did. It was not more than 2 or 3 minutes away by car. It was called the Solage. I said, "Well, how much do you want for it?" They told me. And I said, "I don't have any money. What if I manage the property for 5 years? You pay me a management fee, and I will give you the fee back, and you will match it. And at the end of 5 years, I will be able to deduct from the mortgage what I give you and what you add to that." At the end of 5 years, I had enough to pay off the mortgage. And so in 5 years, I then owned the property. but I operated the property exactly a year after I acquired my little Quality Inn.
Your first
So
one.
from being terminated to now the owner of 2 properties. Well, that's a long story. I apologize.
Well, that's quite all right. Fascinating, always. I'm curious, to scale any business, whether it's hospitality, technology, doesn't matter, establishing processes, best practices is a major component in that success. Talk for a moment about how your leadership philosophy, your leadership style is reflected in how you train and sort of create an updraft for the people within your organization.
Well, I must confess that spending time with Uncle Sam taught me a number of lessons. And there are 2 things I never forget. One is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And the other is PPP, prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And I know that sounds overly simplistic, but it really isn't. Plan, 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 and don't get complicated. And I've tried to remember those 2 philosophies over the years, and they have brought me the success that I have today. Don't get complicated. Also, I believe in treating people kindly. We don't call our associates employees, we call them associates. And we love them, and we treat them like family members as they should be treated. And after 47 years, many of our associates are still with us. In hospitality, turnover is a significant problem. We have longevity that is unmatched. Many of our associates have been with us for 20, 25, some 30, and some even 40 years, and we're very, very proud of that. So,
Mr. Rosen, would you take just a moment to share with everybody what some of those incentives are that you have built into sort of the culture of Rosen Hotels?
I appreciate that. If you work for me for 3 years and you would like to go to public college here in Florida, I will pay your tuition. If you have children that are also in college, I'll pay their tuition. We have our own medical center. We've had it for 30 years. And if you have a prescription and you go to Walmart, you can pick up the prescription 90, 95% without any cost at all. I pay. If you're in the hospital, the most you'll pay is $750 for one visit, and then for a second visit, and after that, you don't pay anything. We did have a little preemie born a number of years ago. Mom and the baby weighed around 2 pounds. Mom and the baby were in the hospital for about 2.5, 3 months. The bill was $1,041,000. I remember that because I paid it. Mom and Dad paid $750. So I think that our philosophy is a little bit different than some other organizations, but we do that because we love our associates and we want to make sure that they're comfortable and happy working with us. About a third of our associates from Haiti. We've been to Haiti a number of times. The last time we were there was after Hurricane Matthew, and we rebuilt from scratch 105 homes that were devastated by the hurricane. Recently, poor Haiti has undergone a major disaster, and we have a ship loaded with all kinds of supplies ready to head to Haiti as soon as they will open their borders and accept us. So yes, we're different because we love our associates. We treat them as family, and I think that has helped us tremendously.
Mr. Rosen, you started your business in a very difficult time, a time that I remember, but most of our audience does not, but they're living through something that I think we never imagined, which is this current pandemic and the impact that's had on the hospitality industry. Could you talk for just a second about, this was a question from one of the students, the resiliency of the industry, what you see in terms of a comeback?
Well, every time I think that things are improving, there's bad news. After July, I thought things were pretty much back on track, but then things crashed with another COVID wave. My fear is that we'll have another COVID wave, and so I don't want to get too excited about the improvements that we're seeing right now. My hope and my prayer is that within a relatively short period of time, perhaps a year or two, things will get back to normal. I hope and pray that that happens. The last 2 years have been absolutely horrific. Never have we lived through such a horrible situation as COVID has brought to the forefront. I do remember many, many years ago sitting with my two granddads from Eastern Europe. They'd lost everything during the Depression in '29. They said that I would be a very successful businessman because I had something special in my genes that they passed on to me. And they also said that don't make the mistake that we made. We borrowed money. And so I went to bed that night and Mom took me in, as she always did. And she said, Harris, why aren't you wearing your pajamas? Why are you wearing your jeans? And I said, oh, Mom, my two granddaddies said I had something special in my genes. Well, she explained to me what the situation was. But I did never forget that they told me that I should not borrow money. Of course, I had to. But about 16 years ago, we paid off all of our debt. And to be quite frank with you, that is what kept us alive, what is keeping us alive during the pandemic. The fact that we don't have 40, 50, 60, $100 million in principal and interest to pay every year.
Right, right. Could you tell everyone the scope of your hotel family? How many properties, approximately how many employees, and what's the capacity if you're full?
Well, we did have 8 properties, but we're closing one. We purchased the property not for the property about 2 years ago, but because we needed the land, the acreage, to expand Rosen Center Hotel. COVID came along about 6 months after we made the purchase. And so now we have 7 properties with close to 7,000 rooms. And when things are normal, we probably have close to 5,000 associates. Right now, we probably have around 2,500. Occupancies are in the 40 to 50% range now. Previously, for about 25 years, we were in the mid 90% range. So it has had a devastating effect on our occupancies, and we're not quite back to full strength yet. But my hope, my prayer is that things will improve.
Sure. I know 2 projects, you alluded to your involvement in Haiti, and I have read about that and so commend you on that, but 2 projects right here in Central Florida. One is the Rosen School of Hospitality, and the other is a project that you're involved with and have been involved with at some time now in Tangelo Park. I know Tangelo Park is a neighborhood that geographically is in close proximity to where many of your properties are. Can you just briefly explain your involvement there and how you got involved and what's happened?
Well, 30 years ago, sitting at my desk, I suddenly thought that it was a time for me to say thank you, God, and to offer a helping hand to those in need. I called a couple of education experts, Bill Spoon and Sarah Sprinkle. Sarah, early childhood expert, Bill, principal of one of the large high schools here in town. And within a very short period of time, we created what is now called the Tangelo Park / Paramore program. Free preschool for all of the 2, 3, and 4-year-olds in both neighborhoods, Tangelo Park and Paramore. And work with the parents, work with the children to make sure that they do well in elementary school, middle school, and high school. The goal is for 100% graduation from high school, and we have achieved that in both neighborhoods. And then, if the youngsters are accepted to community college or four-year college here in Florida, or to a trade school, we take care of all of their expenses, every bit of them, books or tuition, whatever. So when they leave college, they don't owe a penny. And we do that in two neighborhoods, Tangelo Park and Paramore. Tangelo Park for about 30 years, Paramore for about 7 years. Recently, Travel and Leisure, a hospitality company, adopted the Edenville neighborhood, and using our template, they will do free preschool and free college. We do have another organization from Fort Wayne, Indiana, that has expressed a very keen interest in adopting a community at Fort Wayne, and another group also in Indiana that has expressed an interest in replicating the program. I know this is going to sound a bit bold, but I do believe, not in my lifetime, but I do believe that if every underserved community in the world, let's start here in America, if every underserved community had a Tangelo Park program, we would not recognize America. We would change America so dramatically and so much for the better that we'd be the envy of the whole world. And that's my hope. That's my prayer. That's my dream.
Mr. Rosen, I know you're the type of person where even setbacks, you look at the opportunity that those setbacks may present. But I was just wondering, if you were able to give advice to your 18, 22-year-old self, what advice would you impart? If you could hop in the DeLorean and, go back in time, what might you say to you?
That's a great question, but I must confess that the answer is a simple one. I would say, Harris, do what you do. Nobody that I'm aware of works as hard as we do. I haven't had a day off probably in the last 2 years. And so hard work is important. Treating people the way you would like to be treated is important. And being kind to those who need a helping hand. It's not very complicated. And so I don't think I would tell myself anything other than get back on the track you were on, Harris, and don't give up. And don't give up. Work hard. And I think I've been blessed, and so I wouldn't want to change anything. Have there been some difficulties, some trying circumstances? Of course, but that's all part of life.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this. Biggest mistake or failure, setback you ever had that turned into an opportunity that you did not at all see at the time you were in it? I'm just curious.
Well, I've been blessed because virtually every initiative that we started became successful with a lot of hard work. Of course, COVID has been devastating, and I just hope and pray that at some point in time it is over. I do believe that we'll all have to be vaccinated every year like we are with the flu to prevent COVID until there's a permanent solution like there was with the polio vaccine. But no, I've been blessed beyond anything I can imagine, and I don't think I'd change anything. The advice I would give to individuals is don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Life is not easy. There are a lot of ups and downs. Be prepared for the downs. Be prepared for the ups. And as I said, always try to treat those around you with respect and dignity and kindness.
I just have two more questions. You did a great job of breaking down what started at Tangelo Park and how that is being replicated nationally and hopefully internationally as you envision. The Rosen School of Hospitality, how did that get started, and what was the genesis of that, and how has that expanded, and where do you see that going?
Yeah, that's a great question also. I got a call one day, maybe around 20 years ago, from Dr. Abe Bazam. He was at University of Central Florida and teaching hospitality management. He came to Orlando to teach hospitality management, believing that because this was the epicenter of hospitality, attractions, hotels, he thought that wonderful things would evolve. But he called me and he said, "Can we sit down and talk?" And I said, "Sure." We sat down in one of our restaurants, and he said, "I'm probably going to leave Orlando because I don't think that the hospitality program in where I am is going to evolve into something that I've dreamed of." And I said, "What is it that you're dreaming of, Abe?" He said, "One day, having a college here in Central Florida, a hospitality college, would absolutely be mind-boggling." I don't know why. I don't know what prompted me to say it, but I knew Abe. I knew how saddened he was. And I said, "Abe, I'll build you a hospitality college." He got emotional and hugged me. And he said, "Where?" And I said, "We've got some extra land near the Shingle Creek Resort, and we'll donate that, and we'll all get together and start designing a school." And we did. And today, the Rosen College is ranked #1 in America and #2 in the world in hospitality management. We've actually
Congratulations.
surpassed our friends at Cornell. I don't know how they feel about it. We've been around for about 17 years. They've been around for over 100 years. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're delighted with the success that Rosen College has achieved.
Excellent. As I said, two questions, and here's the last one, and this comes from one of our students. They're curious about, you've been a marathoner in terms of your business success and your professional achievements. How do you avoid burnout? How do you avoid staying hungry every day for what you do?
Listen, I'm 82 years old now. I can't imagine how much longer I'm going to be doing this. I know I will be here until we're back to normal. But I try to stay fit as best I can.
I know you're an active
But
swimmer.
Yes, I do. I swim 1.25 miles 5 days a week at the Aquatic Center, which we now manage and own. You just have to hang on and do the best you can, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. I will not leave until we're back to normal, and I don't know how long that's going to take.
Well, Mr. Rosen, I think I speak for everyone at Eastern Florida State College as well as Daytona State College and all the students and the people who are watching today that you have exceeded all expectations in what you have presented to us, and you're just a sterling example of what can be done and what should be done by entrepreneurs everywhere, whether it's as extensive as you've been able to do or just in a small way of helping your employees be all they can be. And so I just want to say thank you. Appreciate your time so much.
My pleasure, sir. God bless.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. I think each and every one of us, wherever we are in our entrepreneurial journey, can take heart, encouragement, as well as knowledge based on the things that Mr. Rosen shared. And I'm looking forward to future Simpkins opportunities like this, and I believe Winston Scott may be on the docket for the next Simpkins series speaker. I know Winston, a fabulous person as well as an incredible, incredible professional, pilot, aviator, astronaut, and of course the contribution he's made to the Florida Institute of Technology has just been incredible. So thank you for being with us today, and God bless.